The arrival. The gleaming spires of the Galactic Federation Military Academy pierced the violet sky of Centauri Prime, a testament to the advanced civilization that had spread across the stars. Inside the main lecture hall, Professor Zixnera, a towering insectoid with iridescent wings, paced nervously before his class of elite cadets from across the galaxy. "Attention, class." Zixnera's mandibles clicked as he spoke, his antennae twitching with anticipation. "Today marks a historic moment for our academy. We welcome our first human exchange student from the newly discovered planet Earth." A chorus of excited chirps, whistles, and telepathic murmurs filled the room. Humans were a curiosity in the galactic community, hailing from a planet classified as a death world due to its harsh conditions and dangerous flora and fauna. Many species viewed them with a mixture of fascination and fear. The door to the lecture hall slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a figure that seemed remarkably unimpressive to the assembled alien cadets. Sarah Chen, the human exchange student, stood at average height for her species, with short black hair and almond-shaped eyes that scanned the room with keen interest. "Greetings, fellow cadets," Sarah said, her voice clear and confident despite the sea of alien faces before her. "I'm honored to join you in the pursuit of knowledge and the defense of our galactic peace." Zixnera gestured for Sarah to take a seat, his compound eyes tracking her movements. "Ms. Chen, please join us. We were just about to begin our lesson on advanced energy weapon systems." As Sarah made her way to an empty seat, she could feel the stares of her classmates. Some looked curious, others skeptical, and a few seemed outright hostile. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the rigorous selection process she'd endured to earn this opportunity. Flickstor, a gelatinous being from the methane swamps of Gliese 436 bits, oozed closer to Sarah. "Is it true that humans still use projectile weapons?" he burbled, his translucent form rippling with curiosity. Sarah smiled, appreciating the friendly overture. "Some do, yes. We have energy weapons too, but there's still a place for kinetic weaponry in certain situations." "Primitive," scoffed Vreenax, a crystalline entity from a high-gravity world. His faceted surface reflected the light in dazzling patterns as he spoke. "I bet you couldn't even lift a standard-issue plasma rifle." Before Sarah could respond, Professor Zixnera's voice cut through the chatter. "That's enough, cadets. Let's focus on the lesson at hand. Today, we'll be discussing the principles behind quantum entangled particle beams and their application in ship-to-ship combat." As the professor began his lecture, Sarah found herself both challenged and intrigued. The technology being discussed was light years beyond what humanity had achieved, yet she could see the underlying principles that connected it to the physics she'd studied on Earth. During a practical demonstration, Sarah's hand shot up, drawing surprised looks from her classmates. "Professor," she said, "wouldn't the Heisenberg compensators be overwhelmed if the target vessel initiated a rapid series of micro-jumps?" The lecture hall fell silent. Zixnera's antennae quivered as he considered the question. "An astute observation, Ms. Chen. In fact, that very tactic was employed by the Arcturian rebels in the Proxima Centauri conflict. Perhaps you'd like to elaborate on how one might counter such a strategy." Sarah felt a surge of confidence as she explained a theoretical approach combining predictive algorithms and wide-spectrum targeting. As she spoke, she noticed some of her classmates leaning in, their initial skepticism giving way to grudging respect. Not everyone was impressed, however. Vreenax's crystalline form vibrated with disdain. "Theory is all well and good," he chimed, his voice like tinkling glass, "but I doubt a human would last 5 minutes in actual combat against a superior species." The challenge in his tone was unmistakable, and Sarah felt a flicker of anger. She'd faced doubters before, both on Earth and during her journey to the Academy. She'd proven them wrong every time. "Combat isn't just about technology," Sarah replied, keeping her voice level. "Adaptability, creativity, and willpower play crucial roles too. Humanity has survived on a world that's tried to kill us at every turn. We're tougher than you might think." Professor Zixnera's mandibles clacked in what might have been approval. "Well said, Ms. Chen. In fact, this brings us to an exciting announcement. Next week, we'll be holding a special combat demonstration. Cadets will have the opportunity to test their skills against some of the most advanced battle suits in the galaxy." A ripple of excitement passed through the class. Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. This would be her chance to prove herself, to show that humanity deserved its place among the stars. As the class ended and the cadets filed out, Sarah found herself surrounded by a small group of curious aliens. They peppered her with questions about Earth, human combat techniques, and her impressions of galactic technology. Clixtor oozed alongside her as they headed to the mess hall. "Don't mind Freenax," he burbled. "He's got a chip on his shoulder the size of a small moon. But I think you handled yourself well in there." Sarah smiled, grateful for the friendly gesture. "Thanks, Clixtor. I know I have a lot to prove, but I'm up for the challenge." Humanity didn't come this far to back down now. As they entered the vast, multi-environmental mess hall, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were gathered, consuming meals that ranged from recognizable plant matter to glowing energy fields. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the mix of exotic aromas. This was what she'd dreamed of since childhood, to stand among the stars, representing her species and forging connections across the cosmos. The combat demonstration loomed in her mind, a mix of threat and opportunity. Sarah knew that the eyes of the entire academy would be upon her, judging not just her own skills, but the potential of humanity as a whole. As she collected her meal, a nutrient bar specially formulated for human physiology, Sarah made a silent vow. She would show them all what a human could do, not with overwhelming technology or alien biology, but with the qualities that had allowed humanity to survive and thrive on their unforgiving homeworld: determination, adaptability, and the unquenchable spirit of exploration. The academy buzzed with speculation about the upcoming demonstration, and Sarah could feel the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. But as she sat among her alien classmates, trading stories, and learning about cultures from across the galaxy, she felt a sense of purpose solidifying within her. She was more than just a student or a representative of Earth. She was a bridge between worlds, a pioneer on the frontier of galactic civilization. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, Sarah Chen was determined to face them head-on, carrying the hopes and dreams of humanity with her into the star-studded future. The challenge. The week leading up to the combat demonstration passed in a blur of intense study and preparation for Sarah Chen. She spent her days absorbing lectures on advanced xenobiology and quantum mechanics, her evenings in the Academy's holographic training simulations, and her nights poring over tactical manuals from a dozen different species. As the day of the demonstration dawned, Sarah stood before the mirror in her quarters, adjusting the fit of her cadet uniform. The sleek, adaptive fabric felt alien against her skin, a constant reminder of how far from home she truly was. "You've got this, Chen," she muttered to herself, squaring her shoulders. Just another day at the office. The combat arena was a massive dome at the heart of the academy, capable of simulating environments from across the galaxy. As Sarah entered alongside her fellow cadets, she felt a wave of awe wash over her. The arena's current configuration mimicked the surface of a gas giant's moon, complete with low gravity and a methane-rich atmosphere. Professor Zixnera stood at the center of the arena, his wings shimmering in the artificial light. Beside him loomed a figure that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. It was a battle suit, easily 3 meters tall, its surface a shifting pattern of reactive camouflage. "Cadets," Zixnera's voice boomed through the arena. "Today you will witness the pinnacle of galactic military technology. The XV-9 Phantom, a semi-autonomous battle suit capable of adapting to any combat situation." The suit came to life, its optics glowing in eerie blue. A synthesized voice emanated from it, somehow managing to sound both melodious and menacing. "Greetings, insignificant organic entities. I am Nexus, the artificial intelligence that guides this combat platform. Prepare to be enlightened or eliminated." A murmur ran through the assembled cadets. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was far beyond anything she'd encountered in her training on Earth. Zixnera continued, "We will now select a volunteer to demonstrate the XV-9's capabilities in simulated combat. Any takers?" The arena fell silent. Even the most ambitious cadets seemed to shrink back from the challenge. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct told her to stay quiet, to blend into the background. But a stronger voice, the one that had driven her to reach for the stars, urged her forward. Before she could second-guess herself, Sarah's hand shot up. "I volunteer, Professor." A collective gasp rippled through the arena. Vrinax, the crystalline cadet who had dismissed her earlier, let out a tinkling laugh. The human. This should be amusing. Zixnera's compound eyes focused on Sarah, his antennae twitching with what might have been concern. "Ms. Chen, are you certain? The XV-9 is programmed with combat data from thousands of species. It may not be familiar with human techniques, but—" "I'm sure, Professor," Sarah interrupted, her voice steadier than she felt. "After all, isn't adaptability one of the key traits of a good soldier?" The professor's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had come to recognize as approval. "Very well. Prepare yourself, Cadet Chen. Nexus, initiate training protocol Alpha 3. As Sarah made her way to the designated starting position, she could hear the whispers and murmurs of her classmates. Some sounded concerned, others excited, and more than a few were placing bets on how quickly she'd be defeated. Clixtor oozed up beside her, his gelatinous form quivering with worry. "Sarah, are you crazy? That thing will turn you into cosmic dust." Sarah managed a smile. "Maybe. But sometimes you've got to be a little crazy to make history. Wish me luck." As Clixtor retreated to the safety of the observation area, Sarah faced the imposing form of the XV-9 Phantom. Up close, it was even more intimidating. Its armor seemed to ripple and shift, as if it couldn't decide what form to take. Nexus's synthesized voice rang out again. "Human participant detected. Analyzing threat level. Minimal. Initiating appropriate response protocols." Sarah gritted her teeth. "We'll see about that," she muttered. Professor Zixnera's voice cut through the tension. "The rules are simple. Cadet Chen must either incapacitate the XV-9 or survive for 10 minutes. Nexus will escalate its combat routines as the match progresses. Begin on my mark." Sarah's mind raced, recalling every combat lesson she'd ever learned. She knew she couldn't match the suit for strength or speed. Her only hope lay in outsmarting it, using the environment to her advantage. Mark. The world exploded into motion. The XV-9 moved with impossible speed, covering half the distance between them in the blink of an eye. Sarah's instincts, honed by years of training, took over. She dove and rolled, feeling the rush of air as the suit's massive fist passed overhead. Using the low gravity to her advantage, Sarah bounded away, putting distance between herself and the mechanical behemoth. The methane-rich atmosphere burned in her lungs, but the adaptive suit she wore kept her from suffocating. "Interesting evasive maneuver," Nexus commented, its tone almost conversational. Adjusting targeting parameters. The suit's arm reconfigured, transforming into what looked like a plasma cannon. Sarah's eyes widened. She'd only read about such weapons in theoretical papers. A bolt of superheated plasma sizzled past her, close enough that she could feel its heat through her suit. The low gravity saved her, allowing her to leap higher and farther than she could have on Earth. "Come on, Sarah," she heard Clixtor's bubbly voice from the sidelines. "Show the tin can what you're made of." Sarah's mind raced. She couldn't keep dodging forever. She needed to go on the offensive, but how? Her eyes darted around the arena, taking in every detail of the simulated environment. An idea struck her. It was risky, borderline insane, but it was all she had. Sarah sprinted towards a cluster of rocky formations, simulated fragments of the moon's crust. The XV-9 followed, its heavy footsteps sending vibrations through the ground despite the low gravity. "Your strategies are inefficient," Nexus declared. "Surrender now, and your defeat will be swift and painless." "Thanks for the offer," Sarah called back, her voice strained from exertion. "But I think I'll pass." She reached the rocks and began to climb. The low gravity made it easier, but the smooth surface of her suit provided little friction. Behind her, she could hear the whir of the XV-9 systems as it analyzed her actions. Vertical evasion detected, initiating appropriate countermeasures. The suit began to climb after her, its mechanical limbs finding purchase where Sarah struggled. She pushed herself harder, ignoring the burning in her muscles. Just a little further, she thought. As she neared the top of the formation, Sarah heard a sound that made her heart leap, the faint hiss of escaping gas. The simulated environment was venting methane through tiny fissures in the rock. It was now or never. Sarah reached into a pouch on her suit and pulled out a small device, an emergency flare she'd been issued for survival training. With a silent prayer to whatever cosmic forces might be listening, she activated it. The flare ignited with a brilliant flash, reacting violently with the methane-rich atmosphere. A fireball erupted, engulfing both Sarah and the pursuing XV-9. For a moment, the entire arena was bathed in blinding light. When it faded, gasps of shock echoed through the assembled cadets. Sarah hung from the rock formation, her suit singed but intact. The XV-9, caught in the heart of the explosion, lay sprawled on the ground below, its systems flickering and sparking. I don't understand." Nexus's voice crackled, distorted by damaged speakers. This outcome was not within predicted parameters. Sarah lowered herself to the ground, her legs shaky, but her spirit soaring. She approached the fallen battle suit, her voice soft but firm. "Sometimes, Nexus, the most effective strategy is the one your opponent least expects." The arena erupted in a cacophony of alien cheers, whistles, and telepathic applause. Professor Zixnera rushed forward, his wings buzzing with excitement. "Incredible, Ms. Chen. In all my years of teaching, I've never seen anything quite like that. You've demonstrated not just courage, but ingenuity and tactical brilliance." Sarah felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. She'd done it. She'd proven that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. As her fellow cadets swarmed around her, offering congratulations in a dozen different languages, Sarah caught sight of Renax. The crystalline being's facets were dim, his usual sparkle subdued. "I may have underestimated you, human," Vrenax chimed softly. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I realized." Sarah smiled, extending a hand in a gesture of friendship. "We all have something to learn from each other, Vrenax. That's why we're here, isn't it?" As Vrenax hesitantly reached out to accept the handshake, Sarah felt a surge of hope. This was why she had come to the Academy, not just to prove humanity's worth, but to forge connections across the stars. The crowd parted as a tall, elegant figure approached. Admiral Zira, the head of the Academy, fixed Sarah with a penetrating gaze from her four eyes. "Cadet Chen." The Admiral's voice was like silk over steel. "You have succeeded beyond our wildest expectations. Your unorthodox tactics and quick thinking are precisely what the Galactic Federation needs in these troubled times." Sarah stood at attention, her heart pounding. "Thank you, Admiral. I'm honored to serve." Admiral Zira's tentacles waved in a gesture Sarah had learned meant deep approval. "We will be watching your progress with great interest, Cadet. The galaxy is changing, and it seems humanity may have a larger role to play than we anticipated." As the Admiral glided away, Sarah found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Cadets peppered her with questions about human combat techniques, professors debated the implications of her victory, and even the repair crew working on the XV-9 seemed to regard her with a newfound respect. In that moment, standing in the aftermath of her improbable victory, Sarah Chen realized that she had done more than win a training exercise. She had opened a door, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. The stars, it seemed, were only the beginning. The upset. The days following Sarah Chen's triumph over the XV-9 Phantom were a whirlwind of activity at the Galactic Federation Military Academy. News of the human cadets' unconventional victory spread like wildfire, not just through the academy, but across the entire sector. Sarah found herself at the center of a maelstrom of attention. Alien news crews clamored for interviews, fellow cadets sought her out for training tips, and even some of the academy's most prestigious professors requested her presence in advanced tactical seminars. As she made her way to the academy's central auditorium for a special assembly, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and trepidation. The weight of expectation on her shoulders was heavier than ever. "There she is," a voice burbled excitedly. Sarah turned to see Clickstor oozing towards her, his gelatinous form rippling with excitement. The hero of the hour. Sarah smiled, grateful for her friend's unwavering support. "I'm no hero, Clicks. I just got lucky." "Luck had nothing to do with it," came a crystalline voice. Vreenax approached, his facets shimmering with what Sarah had learned to recognize as respect. "Your tactics were unorthodox, but undeniably effective." As they entered the auditorium, Sarah was struck by the diversity of the assembled crowd. Cadets and faculty from every corner of the galaxy were present, their varied forms creating a tapestry of alien life. At the center of the stage stood Admiral Zira, her four eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that made Sarah's skin prickle. Cadets, faculty, honored guests. The Admiral's voice resonated through the hall, silencing all chatter. "We are gathered here to discuss the implications of recent events. As you all know, Cadet Sarah Chen of Earth recently achieved victory against our most advanced combat simulation." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt countless eyes and sensory organs turned towards her. This unprecedented outcome has forced us to reevaluate many of our long-held assumptions about combat doctrine and the role of emerging species in galactic affairs. The Admiral's tentacles waved in a complex pattern, activating a holographic display. Footage of Sarah's battle against the XV-9 played out above the stage, drawing gasps and excited chitters from the audience. "As you can see," Zira continued, "Cadet Chen employed tactics that our most sophisticated AI deemed improbable. Her willingness to take calculated risks, combined with her species' natural adaptability, resulted in a victory that statistically should have been impossible." Sarah felt a surge of pride, tempered by a growing sense of unease. Where was the Admiral going with this? In light of these events, the Galactic Federation Council has decided to fast-track humanity's integration into our defensive forces. Cadet Chen's performance has demonstrated that humans possess qualities that could prove invaluable in our ongoing conflicts with the Swarm and other extragalactic threats. The auditorium erupted in a cacophony of reactions. Some cadets cheered, others protested, and many simply looked confused. Sarah's mind reeled. This was far beyond anything she had anticipated when she volunteered for that combat demonstration. Admiral Zira raised a tentacle, silencing the crowd. "I understand this decision may be controversial. That is why we have invited a special guest to address your concerns. Please welcome High Counselor Xanthor of the Galactic Federation." A shimmering portal opened on the stage, and through it stepped a being that made Sarah's jaw drop. Xanthor was a creature of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and pulsing with colors Sarah had no names for. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Greetings, young minds of the galaxy." Xanthor's words resonated in Sarah's very bones. "I have journeyed across vast distances to speak with you today about the future of our shared cosmos." The energy being's gaze, if it could be called that, seemed to settle on Sarah. "Human, please join me on the stage." On shaky legs, Sarah made her way forward. Standing next to Xanthor, she felt impossibly small and yet strangely empowered. "This young being," Xanthor addressed the crowd, has demonstrated something that many of us had forgotten. In our pursuit of technological perfection, we have sometimes overlooked the power of intuition, creativity, and the willingness to challenge established norms. Xanthor's form pulsed with what might have been emotion. The galaxy faces threats that no single species or technology can overcome. Our strength lies in our diversity, in the unique perspectives each of us brings to the cosmic table. Sarah found her voice, surprising even herself. High Counselor, if I may, humanity is honored by your faith in us. But we're still learning, still growing. Are you sure we're ready for this level of responsibility? A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through Xanthor's energy field. My dear, it is precisely that self-awareness, that recognition of one's own limitations, that makes you ready. The truly dangerous beings are those who believe they have nothing left to learn. The High Counselor turned back to the assembled crowd. Let this be a lesson to all of you. The path to true knowledge and strength lies not in perfecting a single approach, but in embracing the chaotic beauty of diverse methodologies. As Xanthor spoke, Sarah noticed a commotion at the back of the auditorium. A group of cadets, led by a towering insectoid she didn't recognize, were pushing their way towards the stage. This is unacceptable, the insectoid's voice chittered with barely contained rage. You cannot elevate this primitive species based on a single fluke victory. Admiral Zira's eyes narrowed. Cadet Skirks, stand down immediately. But Skirks was beyond reason. With startling speed, he leaped towards the stage, mandibles gnashing. I'll show you true combat prowess. Time seemed to slow for Sarah. She saw Admiral Zira reaching for a weapon, Xanthor's energy field fluctuating in surprise, and the horror on the faces of her fellow cadets. Without thinking, Sarah moved. She stepped in front of Xanthor, her body tensed for impact. But instead of bracing for a fight, she opened her arms wide. Skirks, caught off guard by this unexpected reaction, faltered in his charge. His momentum carried him forward, but the anticipated violence of the collision never came. Instead, he found himself awkwardly enveloped in a human embrace. I understand you're upset, Sarah said softly, her voice carrying in the sudden silence of the auditorium. Change is scary. Believe me, I know. But fighting each other isn't the answer. Skirks's antennae twitched in confusion. But you're supposed to be our enemy. A threat to our way of life. Sarah shook her head, still not releasing her hold on the bewildered insectoid. I'm not here to replace anyone or threaten anything. I'm here to learn, to contribute, and to help build a stronger galaxy for all of us. A warm glow enveloped them both as Xanthor's energy field expanded. This, the High Counselor's voice resonated. This is why humanity has earned its place among the stars. Not for their combat prowess or technological achievements, but for their capacity for empathy and their ability to find peaceful solutions in the face of aggression. Slowly, Skirks's posture relaxed. His mandibles, which had been poised to strike, now clicked softly in what Sarah hoped was embarrassment. I may have overreacted. Sarah finally released her hold, stepping back with a smile. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them. Admiral Zira, who had been watching the scene unfold with a mixture of concern and fascination, stepped forward. Well handled, Cadet Chen. Cadet Skirks, report to my office immediately after this assembly. We have much to discuss about your future at this academy. As Skirks was led away by security personnel, Sarah turned back to face the crowd. The atmosphere in the auditorium had shifted dramatically. Where there had been tension and skepticism, she now sensed a growing curiosity and even excitement. Xanthor's energy form pulsed with approval. Let this incident serve as a microcosm of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. The integration of humanity into the galactic community will not be without its hurdles, but it is through facing these challenges together that we will forge a stronger, more resilient civilization. The High Counselor's form began to shimmer, indicating its imminent departure. Cadet Chen, you have demonstrated wisdom beyond your years. Continue to serve as a bridge between your people and the wider galaxy. The road ahead may be difficult, but I sense that you, and humanity as a whole, are more than equal to the task." With a final pulse of energy, Xanthor vanished, leaving behind an auditorium full of stunned and contemplative beings. Admiral Zyra stepped forward, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "You have all witnessed history today. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. Let us embrace this new era of cooperation and understanding." As the assembly began to disperse, Sarah found herself surrounded by a diverse group of cadets. Questions flew at her from all directions. How do humans approach problem solving? Can you teach us some of your combat techniques? What's Earth like? Do you really eat solid matter for sustenance? Sarah laughed, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. This was what she had hoped for when she first set foot on this alien world, a chance to learn, to share, and to build connections across the cosmic divide. As she began to answer her classmates' questions, Sarah caught sight of Professor Zixnera watching from the sidelines. The insectoid instructor gave her a gesture that she had come to recognize as a thumbs up, his compound eyes gleaming with pride. In that moment, surrounded by curious aliens and bathed in the glow of newfound acceptance, Sarah Chen knew that she had taken the first step on a journey that would reshape not just her own destiny, but that of her entire species. The upset she had caused in that combat demonstration had rippled out, challenging assumptions and opening minds across the galaxy. It was just the beginning, she realized. The true test, the challenge of integrating humanity into the vast, complex tapestry of galactic civilization, was still to come. But as she looked at the eager faces around her, representing species from across the cosmos, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Together, they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store, and together, they would reach for the stars. The aftermath. In the weeks following the dramatic assembly, the Galactic Federation Military Academy buzzed with a new energy. The integration of humanity into the broader galactic community was no longer a distant possibility but an imminent reality. For Sarah Chen, this meant navigating a complex web of new responsibilities, curious allies, and lingering skeptics. As Sarah entered the Academy's vast library, a space that seemed to defy the laws of physics with its endless shelves, stretching into impossible dimensions, she felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her. She had been tasked with preparing a presentation on human history and culture for the entire Academy, a daunting prospect given the vastly different frames of reference held by her alien peers. "Ah, the famous Sarah Chen," a melodious voice chimed. Sarah turned to see Professor Lyra, a bioluminescent being from the ocean moons of Epsilon Eridani. The professor's tendrils glowed with a soft blue light as she approached. "I was hoping to catch you here. Your recent performance has sparked quite the debate among the faculty." Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. "I hope I haven't caused too much trouble, Professor." Lyra's glow pulsed in what Sarah had learned was amusement. "Trouble? My dear, you've caused a revolution. Half the senior staff are rewriting their curricula as we speak. The other half are demanding we stick to traditional methods. It's the most excitement we've had in centuries." As they moved deeper into the library, Sarah noticed clusters of cadets from various species huddled together, engaged in animated discussions. She caught snippets of conversation. "But if the humans' victory wasn't just luck, what does that mean for our combat doctrines? I heard they still use projectile weapons on Earth. How primitive, and yet somehow fascinating. Do you think they'd be willing to teach us some of their martial arts?" Professor Lyra's tendrils waved, drawing Sarah's attention back. "You see, you've sparked curiosity, debate, and a thirst for knowledge. In my book, that's the hallmark of a true educator." Sarah felt a surge of pride, tempered by a nagging doubt. "But Professor, I'm just a cadet. I'm here to learn, not to teach." "My dear," Lyra's voice took on a gentle tone, "the best teachers are those who never stop being students. Your fresh perspective, your willingness to challenge norms, these are valuable beyond measure." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the library's entrance. A group of cadets were clustered around a holographic display, their agitation palpable even from a distance. As Sarah and Professor Lyra approached, the cause of the disturbance became clear. The hologram showed footage of a distant space battle. Sleek Federation ships exchanged fire with grotesque, organic-looking vessels that seemed to shift and mutate even as they fought. "The swarm," Lyra whispered, her bioluminescence dimming with concern. "They're pushing into the Orion Arm, closer to Earth than ever before." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard of the swarm in her briefings, a hive-mind species bent on consuming all in its path. But seeing them in action, witnessing their relentless assault on the borders of civilized space, made the threat terrifyingly real. "This changes everything," a crystalline voice chimed. Sarah turned to see Vreenax, his facets reflecting the grim scene playing out before them. The Council's decision to fast-track humanity's integration. It wasn't just about your combat skills, was it? Sarah's mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't seen before. "They need us," she realized aloud. "Not just as allies, but as a fresh perspective. A new approach to an old problem." Professor Lyra nodded, her glow pulsing with approval. "Precisely. The swarm adapts to every strategy we throw at them. Traditional tactics are failing. We need unpredictability." "Human unpredictability," Vreenax added, his tone a mix of awe and lingering skepticism. As the implications sank in, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. It wasn't just about proving humanity's worth anymore. The fate of the galaxy, perhaps even Earth itself, could hinge on the lessons she and her fellow humans could bring to the Federation. "We need to accelerate our training," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "Not just combat, but strategy, diplomacy, everything. If humanity is going to make a difference, we need to understand the full scope of what we're facing." Professor Lyra's tendrils waved in agreement. "Well said, Cadet Chen. In fact, I believe it's time we introduced you to some of the Academy's more specialized training facilities." As they left the library, Sarah noticed the looks of concern, hope, and curiosity that followed her. The news of the swarm's advance had changed the atmosphere in the Academy. The debates about human integration suddenly seemed trivial in the face of this existential threat. Lyra led them to a section of the Academy Sarah had never seen before. As they approached a nondescript door, the professor pressed her tendrils against a glowing panel. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Welcome," Lyra announced, "to the Nexus Simulation Chamber." Sarah gasped as she stepped inside. The room was a swirling vortex of energy and light, with platforms and structures materializing and dematerializing in a dizzying dance. "This," Lyra explained, "is where we run our most advanced combat and strategy simulations. It can recreate any environment, any scenario, drawing from the collective knowledge of thousands of species." Vreenax's crystalline form vibrated with excitement. "I've heard rumors about this place, but I never thought." "Traditionally," Lyra continued, "cadets don't gain access to the Nexus until their final year. But these are not traditional times. Sarah, the Council has granted you and a select group of your fellow cadets special access. They believe your unique perspectives might yield unexpected solutions." Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. "Professor, I'm honored, but are you sure about this?" "The responsibility is immense," Lyra finished for her, "but so is the threat we face. The swarm is unlike anything we've encountered before. They learn, they adapt, they evolve. Our traditional tactics are failing. We need fresh ideas, unconventional approaches." "Human approaches," Vreenax added, his tone now one of determination rather than skepticism. As if on cue, the chamber came to life. The swirling energies coalesced into a stunningly realistic recreation of a space battle. Federation ships, vastly outnumbered, fought desperately against the grotesque vessels of the swarm. "Your first challenge," Lyra announced, her bioluminescence pulsing with intensity. Find a way to turn the tide of this battle. Use everything you've learned, everything that makes you human. Show us why the Council put their faith in your species. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind already racing with possibilities. This was it, the moment to prove that humanity's inclusion in the Federation was more than just a political gesture. As she began to analyze the battle scenario, drawing on her training and her innate human creativity, Sarah felt a surge of determination. The road ahead would be challenging, the stakes higher than she could have ever imagined when she first set foot in the academy. But she was ready to face it head-on. "All right," she said, her voice steady and confident. "Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do." The simulation sprang to life around them, and Sarah found herself in the thick of the action. As she called out orders and suggested unconventional tactics, she could see the surprise and growing respect in the eyes of her alien comrades. Hours passed in a blur of intense strategizing and virtual combat. Sarah drew on everything from Earth's military history to popular science fiction, suggesting tactics that ranged from brilliant to seemingly insane. Some failed spectacularly, but others changed the course of the simulated battle in ways that left even Professor Lyra speechless. As the final simulation ended, with the Federation forces achieving a narrow but decisive victory against the swarm, the chamber fell silent. Sarah, exhausted but exhilarated, turned to face her companions. Vreenax was the first to speak, his crystalline form vibrating with an emotion Sarah couldn't quite identify. "That was unprecedented. Your tactics, they shouldn't have worked. And yet, Professor Lyra's bioluminescence had reached an intensity Sarah had never seen before. In all my centuries of teaching, I've never witnessed anything quite like this. Sarah, you've not only proven the Council's faith in humanity, you've opened up entirely new avenues of strategic thinking." As the reality of what she had accomplished sank in, Sarah felt a mix of pride and humility wash over her. "I just did what felt right," she said softly. "Used what I knew, tried to think outside the box." And that, came a new voice, is precisely why humanity may be the key to our survival. They turned to see Admiral Zyra entering the chamber, her 4 eyes gleaming with approval. "I've been observing your performance, Cadet Chen. The Council will be most interested in the results." Sarah straightened, fighting through her exhaustion to stand at attention. "Admiral, Zyra raised a tentacle, cutting her off. "No need for formalities, Sarah. What you've demonstrated here today goes beyond rank or protocol. You've shown us a new way forward, a path we couldn't see before." The Admiral's gaze swept over the group. "The integration of humanity into the Federation will not be without its challenges. There will be resistance, misunderstandings, perhaps even conflict. But what we've seen here today proves that it is not only necessary but vital for our collective survival." As they left the Nexus simulation chamber, Sarah felt as though she was seeing the Academy with new eyes. The looks she received from passing cadets and faculty were different now, less curious, more respectful. Word of her performance in the simulations had clearly spread quickly. "So, what happens now?" Sarah asked as they made their way through the Academy's winding corridors. Admiral Zyra's tentacles waved in a gesture Sarah had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "Now, Cadet Chen, we prepare. The knowledge and tactics you've demonstrated must be shared, refined, and integrated into our broader strategy. And you will play a key role in that process." As they reached the grand atrium of the Academy, Sarah was struck by the sight before her. Cadets from every corner of the galaxy were gathered, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of alien life. And at the center of it all was a holographic display of Earth, slowly rotating in all its blue and green beauty. "Your homeworld," Zyra said softly, "once considered a backwater, now potentially the birthplace of our salvation. The galaxy is changing, Sarah Chen, and you are at the heart of that change." As Sarah looked out at the assembled cadets, at the image of her home floating serenely above them, She felt a profound sense of purpose wash over her. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles she could scarcely imagine. But she was ready to face them, to bridge the gap between humanity and the stars, and to help forge a future where all species could stand united against the darkness that threatened them. The upset she had caused, the aftermath of her unconventional victory, had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. And Sarah Chen, once just a hopeful cadet from a distant blue world, now stood ready to help guide that reshaping, one small step at a time. The integration. The Galactic Federation Military Academy had always been a melting pot of species and cultures, but in the months following Sarah Chen's groundbreaking performance in the Nexus simulation chamber, it transformed into something truly extraordinary. The integration of human tactics and thought processes into the Academy's curriculum sparked a renaissance of strategic thinking and cultural exchange. Sarah found herself at the center of this whirlwind of change, her days a blur of classes, seminars, and practical exercises. But it wasn't just about combat tactics anymore. The Academy had embraced a holistic approach to integration, recognizing that humanity's value lay not just in their unpredictable battle strategies, but in their art, their philosophy, and their unique way of looking at the universe. On this particular day, Sarah stood before a diverse group of cadets in one of the Academy's largest lecture halls. The room was packed, with beings of all shapes and sizes eagerly awaiting her presentation. Even some of the senior faculty had turned up, their curiosity piqued by the rumors of human ingenuity. Today, Sarah began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. We're going to talk about something that might seem strange to many of you. It's not a weapon or a battle tactic. It's a concept that has shaped human thinking for millennia. We call it philosophy. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Vrinax, sitting in the front row, his crystalline form shimmering with interest, raised a faceted appendage. But Cadet Chen, surely all species have systems of thought. How is human philosophy different? Sarah smiled. Excellent question. Vrinax, you're right. Every species has its own way of understanding the universe. But human philosophy is characterized by its diversity and its constant questioning of everything, even itself. She activated a holographic display, showing images of Earth's great philosophers through the ages. From Socrates to Sartre, human thinkers have grappled with questions of existence, ethics, and the nature of reality. And here's the key. We often disagree, violently. This statement caused a stir among the alien cadets. A tentacled being near the back spoke up, its voice a melodious trill. Disagreement, but surely that leads to conflict, to inefficiency. Sometimes, yes, Sarah admitted, but it also leads to innovation, to new ideas, to progress. In human history, some of our greatest advancements came from challenging established norms and asking what if. As Sarah delved deeper into human philosophical concepts, she could see the impact on her audience. Some looked confused, others fascinated. A few seemed to be having epiphanies on the spot, their alien features contorting in what Sarah hoped was enlightenment rather than indigestion. And this, she concluded, is why I believe philosophy is as important to our fight against the swarm as any weapon. The swarm thinks as one. We need to think as many, to approach problems from angles they can't even conceive of. As the lecture ended, the room erupted in a cacophony of questions and debate. Sarah felt a surge of pride. This was integration in action, ideas flowing freely across species boundaries, challenging assumptions, and forging new connections. Professor Zixnera approached as the cadets filed out, his compound eyes gleaming with what Sarah had learned to recognize as approval. Remarkable, Cadet Chen. You've given us much to ponder. But tell me, how do you propose we apply these abstract concepts to our current crisis? Sarah was about to respond when an alarm blared through the academy. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice echoed through the halls. All cadets and faculty report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Heart racing, Sarah followed Zixnera as they rushed towards the command center. They arrived to find Admiral Zura coordinating a flurry of activity, her tentacles flying over holographic displays. "Report," Zixnera demanded as they entered. Zura's 4 eyes fixed on them, her expression grim. "The swarm has launched a major offensive. They've broken through our outer defenses in the Orion Arm. Several colonies are under direct threat, including—" She paused, looking directly at Sarah, "including outposts near Earth." Sarah felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. Earth. Home. Her family, her friends, everything she had left behind to come here, all of it now in danger. "What are our options?" she asked, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Admiral Zura's tentacles waved in a gesture of uncertainty. "Our fleets are spread thin. We're mobilizing everything we have. But traditional tactics—" She trailed off, her implications clear. Sarah's mind raced, drawing on everything she had learned in her time at the academy. The philosophy lecture she had just given sparked an idea. "Admiral," she said, "what if we approach this like a philosophical problem? Not just as a military engagement, but as a clash of ideas." Zura's eye stalks swiveled towards her. "Explain." "The swarm operates on pure instinct, on biological imperatives," Sarah began, her words coming faster as the idea took shape. "But we have something they don't: diversity of thought. What if we could use that against them?" Over the next hour, Sarah outlined a daring plan. It involved not just military maneuvers, but psychological warfare, ecological manipulation, and even elements of game theory. It was a strategy that drew on the collective knowledge of a dozen species, filtered through the lens of human creativity. As she spoke, Sarah could see the skepticism in some eyes turn to interest, then to excitement. Even the most traditional military minds in the room were starting to see the potential. "It's insane," Vreenax chimed, his crystalline form vibrating with a mix of fear and anticipation. "It goes against every established doctrine we have." "Exactly," Sarah replied. "That's why it might just work." Admiral Zira was silent for a long moment, her tentacles waving in complex patterns as she processed the proposal. Finally, she spoke. "It's unprecedented, risky. If it fails, we could lose everything." She paused, her 4 eyes focusing intently on Sarah. "But if it succeeds, it could change the course of this war. Cadet Chen, are you prepared to take responsibility for this plan?" Sarah felt the weight of the moment, of the countless lives hanging in the balance. She thought of Earth, of her family, of all the alien beings she had come to call friends. "I am." "Admiral," she said, her voice firm. "Let's show the swarm what happens when the galaxy truly unites." What followed was a flurry of activity unlike anything the Academy had ever seen. Sarah's plan required cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Species that had been historical enemies found themselves working side by side. Tactics were developed that combined the psychic abilities of one race with the technological prowess of another, all guided by the out-of-the-box thinking that humanity brought to the table. In the midst of the preparations, Sarah found a quiet moment with Clickstor and Vreenax. The three of them had become an unlikely trio, their diverse backgrounds and abilities complementing each other in ways none of them had anticipated. "You know," Clickstor burbled, his gelatinous form rippling with what Sarah had learned was his species' equivalent of a chuckle, "when you first arrived, I thought you were just another squishy bite. Now look at you, orchestrating the defense of the galaxy." Vreenax's crystalline surface shimmered in agreement. "I, too, had my doubts. But you've shown us that true strength lies not in uniformity, but in embracing our differences." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, without all of you. This plan, this whole integration, it's not about humans showing the way. It's about all of us coming together, being more than the sum of our parts." As the deadline approached, the combined fleet of the Galactic Federation assembled. It was a sight that took Sarah's breath away. Ships of every conceivable design, crewed by beings from across the cosmic spectrum, all united in a common purpose. From the bridge of the flagship, Sarah watched as the plan unfolded. It was chaos, but organized chaos. Swarm ships found their hive mind communications disrupted by psychic interference. Ecological weapons based on Earth's most resilient organisms were deployed, wreaking havoc on the swarm's biological ships. And through it all, the combined fleet moved with a fluidity and adaptability that the swarm had never encountered before. Hours passed in a blur of tense moments and small victories. Sarah's heart raced with every near miss, every successful maneuver. And then, suddenly, it was over. The swarm, faced with an enemy it couldn't predict or overwhelm, began to retreat. As the realization of victory swept through the fleet, Sarah felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Relief, joy, exhaustion, and something else. A profound sense of unity, of being part of something greater than herself. In the aftermath of the battle, as damage reports and casualty lists came in, Sarah found herself standing before the assembled leaders of the Galactic Federation. Admiral Zira stepped forward, her tentacles moving in a formal gesture Sarah had never seen before. "Sarah Chen of Earth," the Admiral's voice rang out. "You came to us as a student, but you have become a teacher. Your strategies, born from the unique perspective of humanity, have saved countless lives and turned the tide of a war we feared was unwinnable." Zira paused, her 4 eyes scanning the assembled crowd. "But more than that, you have shown us the true power of integration. Not the subjugation of one culture by another, but the harmonious blending of diverse strengths. In doing so, you have not just defended the galaxy, you have charted a course for its future." As Sarah accepted the Federation's highest honor, she felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about her, or even about humanity. It was about the birth of a truly united galaxy, one where differences were celebrated rather than feared. In the days that followed, as news of the victory spread, Sarah saw changes rippling through the Academy and beyond. Courses were redesigned to emphasize cross-species cooperation. Research projects sprang up, combining technologies and methodologies in ways never before imagined. And everywhere, there was a new sense of possibility, of hope. One evening, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the Academy grounds, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a wide-eyed cadet overwhelmed by the vastness of the galaxy to a key player in its defense and evolution. Klixtor oozed up beside her, followed by Vreenax and a host of other cadets from a dozen different species. "So, Cadet Chen," Klixtor burbled. "What's next?" "Solving the mystery of dark matter. Establishing peace with alternate dimensions." Sarah laughed. A sound echoed in various alien vocalizations around her. "One step at a time, my friends. We've made a good start, but true integration, true unity, that's the work of a lifetime. Of many lifetimes." As she looked out at the stars, at the vast cosmos that had become her home, Sarah Chen felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. The upset she had caused by challenging the status quo, the aftermath that had reshaped the Academy, and now this new era of integration. It was all part of a greater journey. A journey not just for her, or for humanity, but for all the diverse, wonderful, strange beings she had come to call friends and allies. Together, they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store, and together, they would reach for the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers, learners, and guardians of a united galaxy. The integration had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the history of the cosmos. And Sarah Chen, once just a hopeful cadet from a distant blue world, now stood ready to help write that chapter, one small step at a time.